Although the MCU's Infinity Saga has recently come to an end with Iron Man's sacrifice and Thanos' seemingly unlikely defeat, it is fair to say that a lot of people want to see their favorite characters come back, and one of them is definitely Thor, the Chad Thunder God who went for the head within Avengers Endgame. One question that is frequently brought up regarding this character is, how strong, fast, and durable is he really? Well, I decided to analyze the movies, guidebooks, art books, and other shit I spent a lot of money on instead of buying anime figures to decipher how overpowered Thor truly is. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Being born into royalty, Thor is well over 1,000 years old and is considered rather young for his age by Asgardian standards. Thanks to his godly genetics, he has super strength, allowing him to lift and move around many tons. He has super speed, energy projection, enhanced durability, and is well versed in many forms of combat to the point that he was able to overpower the gladiator Hulk, who had trained for the equivalent of well over 100,000 years on Sakaar, given by how 10 to 20 seconds in the outside world equated to a few weeks if we take Loki's words to a T. Even among the elite guards, the Valkyries, or the Warriors 3, Thor is by far the strongest warrior in the mystical land and eventually surpasses Father Odin, who was stated as being able to defeat entire armies with the slightest action, and as having earth-shattering power in the art books. Due to his excellent combat prowess, he was granted a mystical hammer known as Mjolnir, or Jonathan according to Paul Rudd, who we should protect at all costs. For a long time, Thor believed that it was the source of his power, but in fact he always had that power and just needed the hammer to channel it. He was not the god of hammers, but the god of thunder. Once he realized this, he managed to surpass his father and become the new king of Asgard for a time. When trying to prevent Loki from bringing death upon the frost giants, Thor shattered the Rainbow Bridge, which took months to repair. It might not seem like that big of a deal, but it is, because as a beam was building up, it would have been able to destroy the realm called Jotunheim, which is compared to being the size of a planet. On top of that, Loki and Thor were able to withstand this explosion from point-blank range. From constantly bickering with his brother Loki, to helping out the Avengers against Ultron who wanted to exterminate mankind, to being one of the main players in the final Avengers films, Thor had a long journey and only became stronger and stronger, ridding himself of doubt and mental blocks along the way. Now, to really get an idea about how strong Thor is, we have to take a look into the Infinity Stones, how they scale within the verse, and how other characters that Thor combated and contended with, and eventually surpassed, perceive their power to be. For starters, within the first Thor film, we got a glimpse of the Casket of Winners, the Frost Giant's weapon of mass destruction that threatened to turn the Earth into a frozen wasteland, which would translate into planetary, if not multi-continental ranges and levels of energy. Now, this doesn't mean that the Casket of Winners can destroy a planet, but it does have enough energy and range to affect it on a massive scale. This is really important because characters like Hela, who slapped all of the Valkyries and was banished by Odin, considered the Casket of Winners to be utter trash and thought that the Tesseract and Infinity Stone was not bad in comparison, meaning that Hela, Surtur, and by extension Thanos would scale well above individual Infinity Stones. Although Thor was able to contend with Hela, he was unable to stop her within Thor Ragnarok, but he clearly surpassed her once he obtained the Stormbreaker, which in itself has its own insane scaling as we'll touch up on. In fact, we don't even have to go that far because Thor's hammer was stated by Odin as having no equal, which includes the Casket of Winners and the Bifrost itself, meaning that it scales above multi-continental to planetary threats. Regarding the Tesseract, within the first Avengers movie, it was stated multiple times that the cube could destroy the planet and that there wasn't a minimum safe distance. On top of that, multiple guidebooks such as the Avengers Initiative and the Character Encyclopedia refer to the Tesseract and other Infinity Stones as having unlimited or outright limitless power. In general, all of the Infinity Stones are stated to having power beyond human comprehension, to be truth itself, and have infinite, if not nearly infinite, levels of energy. Which would make sense given that the Ether, aka the Reality Stone, in tandem with the Convergence, would have been able to affect the universe and purge all of the light within it. The Ether in itself is powerful enough to destroy planets, affect the 9 realms as stated in one of the comic book tie-ins to the MCU, and the Power Stone was going to be used by Ronan to destroy Xandar. So what I'm trying to get at here is that the Casket of Winners already had multi-continental to planetary ranges of energy, yet it was insignificant trash compared to the Infinity Stones. In regards to the Ether, even before Malekith manifested all of the power into it, he was going to plunge the Endless Universe into darkness really fast, which is king shit, given that Thor was able to react to his attacks and was able to damage him, and at one point managed to shatter it, although it did reform afterwards, but he was confident that he could have taken it down. So a pre-Stormbreaker Thor should easily be within the multi-continental to planetary levels of attack potency, especially since Thor was able to withstand multiple attacks from this empowered Malekith. Yeah, he did need some gravimetric spikes to win in the end, but he was still able to contend with an Infinity Stone empowered being. Regarding the convergence, I know some people might try to bring up that, oh, it is only universal because of the convergence, but not really. It did not amplify the Ether's power. All it did was amplify its range and rate of darkness. In other words, the Ether by itself would already be capable of turning the entire universe into darkness, but it would simply take longer and be harder to do so without the convergence. In Age of Ultron, alongside Iron Man's assistance, he was able to crush apart a massive chunk of the country Sokovia, which threatened a global extinction event. Thor's durability is crazy, because after he was weakened after getting his ass beat by Thanos, he was able to withstand the explosion of a ship that withstood the Devil's Anus, a wormhole implied to be a collapsing neutron star. Plus, he took multiple hits from the Gungnir, which managed to pretty much two-shot beings such as King Laufey, who had contested with and briefly hurt a younger Prime Odin. Despite not being able to defeat Thanos at the beginning of Infinity War, Thor decided to come back with a weapon capable of doing so, called the Stormbreaker, which was forged in Nidavellir, a legendary forge with a Dyson sphere that even Rocket was impressed by, who, by the way, could create weapons like the Hadron Enforcer that we saw in the first Guardians of the Galaxy film that could shatter moons, as stated in the guidebooks, and he could even create bombs powerful enough to cripple Ego's core. So even these moon to planet cracking weapons were thought of by the gang as not being powerful enough to defeat Thanos even prior to obtaining the other stones. Yet Thor's weapon could still solidly slice his head apart. Speaking of Thanos, he is very insane because he is narratively implied to being the biggest threat that the Avengers had to face, implying that he's around Hela and Surtur's sphere of power, who could already destroy Asgard, a planetary body which is more durable and would be harder to destroy than the Earth according to Marvel archives. Also, Thanos' raw strength was so impressive that he was able to handle the Tesseract and shatter the cube, which was stated by Bruce Banner that one would need over 120 million Kelvin to pierce the shell. For reference, our sun's core has a temperature of over 15 million Kelvin, meaning that in order to destroy the Tesseract, one would need enough raw power or energy projection that is several times above the resting temperature of our sun's core. In other words, Thor's Stormbreaker did more damage to Thanos, who was literally unaffected by crushing the Tesseract, so it would scale well above that. To further back this up, Thor was able to endure the heat of a dwarf star for a considerable amount of time. True, he was temporarily knocked out afterwards, but he was still dealing with millions of Kelvin worth of energy that could raise entire continents and likely much more. And he very likely surpassed that threshold once he obtained the Stormbreaker, which allowed him to literally overpower all 6 Infinity Stones and heavily damage Thanos. Given that just one stone, the Ether, was capable of affecting and ripping apart the entire universe, and this was stated multiple times, and I mean, we saw that Time Stone overpowered Dormammu, who is implied to be an extra-dimensional being outright that exists outside of time, I think it is fair to say that a complete Gauntlet Thanos was well above baseline Universal in terms of range and could have created a new one entirely, as stated in Endgame. In fact, as we saw in What If, a being with multiple stones should offensively be capable of destroying multiple planets and even galaxies, because Infinity Ultron threatened to destroy one with ease. Now hold on, I'm not saying that Thor can destroy an universe or a galaxy, but he was able to overpower the energy range to do so. In other words, I think it could be argued that Thor has much higher attack potency than planetary levels. Personally, I don't want to jump the gun, but I do find it to be plausible in a way. We do have to keep in mind that it was stated that the weapons forged by the star were a terror to the universe and would make mortal minds go mad and feel overwhelmed. And I mean, Thanos outright wanted to prevent the Dwarf Forger from making such weapons because he knew that the Stormbreaker could rival if not surpass the might of the stones. If you have seen Bleach and you're aware of the whole universal scaling meta, maybe you could think of it as being similar to how Ichigo was able to damage and kill Yhwach, who could reform an entire multiverse. Now, this doesn't mean that Ichigo can destroy an universe directly, but it could be argued that he could damage beings who can do so and affect something on such a wide range, and I think this could be a similar case here. In terms of speed, he should be at least well above hypersonic, given that even Iron Man's earlier models were already capable of Mach 5 speeds, and he literally uses lightning as an attack, and could somewhat react to and keep up with Hela, who reacted to his own lightning as well. However, Thor has FTL if not relativistic reaction times and combat speed, given that he was able to react to and fight Hela on the Bifrost, which can cross entire galaxies in mere moments. Okay, now I know some people might try to bring up the Quicksilver thing being able to react to his hammer and seemingly blitz Thor, but it is more than likely an outlier given that a tired Pietro was unable to react on time to bullets several times, so you would either have to argue that Quicksilver is barely a bullet timer, or that the bullets are faster than lightning. I mean, take your pick. To say he's not even a lightning timer is weird because, I mean, he uses it as an attack, especially when you account for the fact that he was able to react to Loki being sucked into a literal black hole within Thor 2, which is stated in the art books and the guides to literally be black holes. Sure, Thor might not be able to demonstrate that speed all the time, and we know he likes to job and hold back at times for the thrill of battle, but I mean, he outright kept up with Hela, who literally caught up to Loki and Thor within the Bifrost, which crosses galaxies in just a few seconds of screen time. This means that at its highest ends, Thor should be massively faster than light in reaction times and combat speed, but to be fair and to not wank too much, I will say that he is at least massively hypersonic. Overall, I believe Thor should be within the planet to planet plus levels of power and durability, although he could be argued much higher going by the aforementioned feats and how the Infinity Stones work. From a character who had everything, Thor became crippled with the loss of his entire family and home, but along the way he developed other close relationships, restored the cosmos, and laid out a new foundation for the Asgardian people. Amongst the big three, Thor was certainly the strongest one, and he was definitely right up there with the likes of Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, and Captain Marvel. Now, was he the strongest Avenger? I don't think so, but he is certainly not one to be underestimated, and he was definitely a heavy hitter. But yeah, there you guys go. Do you agree with the scaling, or am I over-exaggerating his power? I mean, I really hope not, because I really analyzed this as much as I could. But oh well. Thanks very much for watching, and I would like to let you all know that I will be doing more MCU content depending on how this video does. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you thotties next time. Peace out.